Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about some of the most unique and interesting campaigns in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. So those kind of campaigns that work so differently from most others that they really do stand out on their own. This doesn't necessarily make them the best campaigns of the game, but it does certainly set the bar higher for what a campaign should be in Total War in general. At number 5, we have Be'lakor of the Warriors of Chaos. Now, Warriors of Chaos as a race do work substantially different than all other races in the game. There are obviously some elements, like having a couple of settlements similar to the Wood Elves, but the way that Warriors of Chaos work with these dark fortresses, which are impregnable almost for anyone to take over, be it yourself as a player or for the AI to take over. In fact, it gets to the point that the AI will almost never attack a dark fortress if it's properly fortified. It does create a fairly unique campaign mechanic combined with a vassalization system. Then you have the uniqueness of the recruitment system and the gifted units, as well as individual unit upgrades. So these are overall great systems. And there are a bunch of different Warriors of Chaos, Legendary Lords, in the game. But I do think Be'lakor does stand above all the others. Because you see, Warriors of Chaos do have a great deal of flexibility and unit variety, more so than pretty much every other race in the game. The problem is that unlocking that kind of uniqueness is pretty annoying, takes a while. It's not so much the problem of getting the various brands available for units, so you can get things of Khorne or Tzeentch or Nurgle. It has to do with the Gifts of Chaos. See, you either have the Gifts of Chaos or you don't have the Gift of Chaos available in a campaign. And in general, if you're looking at Be'lakor, if you're looking at Sigvald, if you're looking at Archaon, if you're looking at Kolic, unlike the monogod ones, you have access to 2 of each god. So you can get that kind of level of flexibility. But here's the difference between Be'lakor and all the others. He starts with 1 slot for each god unlocked from the very beginning of your campaign. And given the pacing of campaigns in general in Total War, it realistically means that unlike Archaon, Sigvald, and Kolic, Be'lakor ends up having a far greater variety in terms of the Gifts of Chaos in his campaign than all the others. Because he can get all the demonic units in his campaign far easier than all the others. He can get all kinds of faction effects, and thus he can have a far more varied campaign roster to play around with. But there's more with respect to this campaign. The gifted units, the demonic gifts they get through Chaos, those are generally limited, unless you're playing Be'lakor, who has an unlimited number of gifted units that he can put in every single one of his armies. So that means that not only can he get a good variety, a huge amount of variety with respect to mortal units, which is something inherently available to Warriors of Chaos, but you also can get far more variety with respect to gifted units in a campaign than all the others. This in itself makes for a really, really good campaign dynamic and a far more fun campaign dynamic than the others. But wait, there is more! Be'lakor also has the ability of opening portals, opening rifts across the entire game. There is a cooldown, to be sure, but he can open these rifts in various locations, so he has, to a degree that no one else has, a great amount of campaign variety and flexibility in a way that not even people like Khorne or Oxyatl can actually match. Because while certainly Arbol or Oxyatl may go further in their campaign much faster, it is only with their legendary lords. Their other armies are more limited. But here you have a system of instant teleportation across a vast amount of territory, and you do start with certain rifts from the beginning of the campaign. So there's one over here in the Empire, in the Ostermark, and then there's one to the south over here. So that means Be'lakor's campaign inherently is more dynamic, more interesting, more varied than most other campaigns in the entire game. And that is what makes playing his campaign so good. It's also the fact that Be'lakor is available to everyone who just wants to play Warhammer 3. You won't have access to the to the various units that are only part of the Champions of Chaos DLC. But even without that DLC, you will still have a huge amount of flexibility and a fairly dynamic campaign available for Bellicor. If there is an issue for Warriors of Chaos, is that they're so far ahead as a race compared to everyone else that they trivialize the entire campaign experience to a very significant degree. But the ideas of this campaign and the ideas of Warriors of Chaos, I do think they're going to redefine Total War going forward. At number 4, we have Tamarcon, the Maggot Lord of Nurgle. And what really sets Tamarcon apart from pretty much every other legendary lord in the game are his chieftains. Unique heroes, legendary heroes, it's not a new mechanic, but the way Tamarcon does end up doing it makes it far more interesting than just, oh, here, you're playing a race, you get the legendary hero, but you're still playing the same race, pretty much. No, Tamarcon's chieftains do redefine the way you play a campaign, dependent on who you're focusing on, and dependent on how much effort you're spending in a campaign to get to make those chieftains really, really work. This is a really great system, because one, it makes legendary heroes actually worth a shit. Because you look at legendary heroes in most campaigns, I'm gonna say it, I don't find most legendary heroes in most campaigns to be all that compelling or interesting to play around with. It's generally a stat stick that you attach to an army or a force. Some campaign effects here and there, but not necessarily all that much. It's actually people like Vlad and Isabella that are amazing legendary heroes, but even then, they're still second fiddle. Whereas with Tamarcon, you not only get great and powerful combatants with their special skill lines, but you also get all of these wonderful abilities over here through the Chieftain tab. So you're getting, consider this, you're getting a fealty system, which may require some rebalancing to unlock things easier or less in a less annoying fashion, but what you do ultimately get over here are a substantial amount of benefits in a campaign. Like, let's go over the list. You get the ability of increasing the chance of spreading a plague and enable attrition for armies in Kask's province. That's for Kask. And you also get a couple of units, Toad Dragons, Rot Knights, Cash Shards of Nurgle. Then you look at the Crazed. You get Dragon Ogre Shaggoths, Hell Cannons, and Aspiring Champions. But you also get Perfect Vigor and complete refilling your campaign movement range for his current army. Then you get some Norscum units, actually good ones, Finir, which by the way means that playing Norsca is irrelevant because you can get some of the best units if you're playing Tamarcon. But you also get the ability of reducing campaign movement range, as well as getting, well, a Cataclysm spell for Quetzalcoatl. So he's Paul Atreides, more or less. Then we have Mournhowl. He gives you stock stats, and he gives you for his current army, and he gives it for all your armies. Ooh, that is sweet. It's like playing a Skaven Nurgle Legendary Lord. Then on top of that, you have Beast Path, so the Underway Path. And you can get that for his current army or all armies. On top of that, you can also replenish. You can replenish in enemy territory or replenish his current army fully with Doombolt, as well as getting things like Dreadquake Mortars. What this creates is a huge amount of variety, huge amount of a very dynamic campaign if you're looking to play Tamarcon in terms of the Chieftain system. And there's nothing quite like the Chieftain system. If there is a precedent set for how legendary heroes should work in a campaign, it is the way that they do work for Tamarcon. Very unique, very interesting. The way you acquire fealty could be rebalanced given current campaign pacing, but that's just in general a Nurgle issue, not necessarily a Tamarcon issue. And there are absolutely issues in Tamarcon's campaign, including, I don't know, the freaking mountain climate that does hurt him, the speed at which you grow Nurgle settlements, the fact that you're using factions for research, for plagues, and for settlement buildings. So there is absolutely rebalancing. But what's kind of frustrating is you look at Tamarcon and you can feel they almost made one of the best legendary lords in the game, and then they fucked it up because they were obsessed about, oh, we still want to have infections for buildings for Nurgle, and we want to screw over Nurgle with mountain climate. It's so frustrating because you can see how great it is, and it's almost there, but it just doesn't quite manage it. However, it can't be denied Tamarcon does have a very unique campaign system available only to him. And this is a campaign where the developers of a future Total War game should take notes because it has some really great ideas. Ideas that should be implemented better absolutely, but the mechanics are absolutely amazing as ideas. At number 3 is Maneater. And of course, Maneater wins out because he has something that Creative Assembly has struggled to do for a very, very long time in Total War. Make the idea of a nomadic faction actually work well within the context of a Total War campaign. They tried it at various points and never worked out, and their best solution has been, well, let's just not make them purely nomadic anymore. Now, you can choose not to be purely nomadic as Maneater, but it also does work surprisingly well to go full-on nomad with him as well. It's a question of the fact that he does have those contracts. So not only is Maneater redefining what we can expect from a nomadic campaign, he's also redefining what we can expect from a mercenary campaign. So you get these contracts, they pay you loot. I do think the system could be further developed, but make no mistake. The idea of this system, the idea of having a dynamic, objective-based system in a campaign is always going to be a fantastic idea. The way they handled it, some of the balancing or the fact that you don't have longer-term contracts in the sense like, okay, maybe I start the contract with the faction and then I complete some goals, but then they're like, hey, you want to stay hard with us? We'll keep paying you if you keep doing stuff for us, and then you eventually potentially could end up with, a full-on diplomatic relationship with the faction or like a permanent alliance with the faction if you're willing to go down that path. So I think, from that perspective, they could have done certain things better. Absolutely. But make no mistake on this subject. Maneater's campaign dynamic is great. Also, the fact that you do have some of the best regiments renowned in the game with Omens of Destruction. Like, say what you will about Omens of Destruction, some of the stuff that they added in is like the Armored Orcs, the Eshin Maneater, like they're just freaking fantastic and amazing regiments renowned that feel really special in quite a few ways in a campaign. But you also get regiments renowned, not necessarily all that many, but you do get regiments renowned from other races like Long Drung or the Armored Orcs. Those are not inherently available in a campaign as ogres. I think it would make more sense to get a couple more, like a Griffin Legion regiment around, because they are mercenaries. Keep in mind that. Griffin Legion, they're loyal to Kislev, they'll fight for Kislev, but they are also mercenaries in the Warhammer world, with a contract stipulating that they will never fight against Kislev. So, just a consideration over there. I do think it could have been developed a bit further, and they could have gone even crazier than they did, but what they ended up doing in this particular campaign with this specific Legendary Lord is still something way, way above the norm of what makes a campaign work. And this is in the context of a race rework where they made all the Legendary Lords of that race, the Ogre race, actually freaking fantastic. I think that is one of the key selling points of Omens of Destruction for the Ogres, and one of the things that Creative Assembly did so exceptionally well for the Ogres in their rework. It is not just the fact that they made Maneater's campaign great. It's the fact that they made every Ogre campaign great one way or another. And I think that is something that shouldn't be ignored about Creative Assembly's success over here with respect to this DLC. So there's a lot of things to like over here. The way the camps work, the way various campaign systems do end up working is freaking fantastic. And shouldn't be dismissed whatsoever in terms of the success that Creative Assembly has shown with respect to this DLC. So if they are looking to design campaigns based on this model, I think we're in for a really, really good time going forward in Total War in general, not just in Warhammer 3. And number 2 is Baltazar Guild of the Empire. And what makes this campaign so very unique and so very interesting in terms of the systems it has is for the Colleges of Magic. If you look at Warhammer Fantasy lore, you will find many situations within that lore where there are some really powerful spells. In fact, the world ended because of a spell gone wrong. Thank you, Manfred. You fucked everything up. Much appreciated. But all the same, you have, with Guild, a really good balancing act in terms of how do you make that kind of magic usable in a Warhammer 3 campaign. And not to the point that it's completely undermining everything else, because if you have just really powerful spells available that are obliterating armies left and right, well, that kind of screws over the balance completely. So the way they ended up handling this in the context of a Warhammer 3 campaign is pretty damn amazing. in quite a lot of ways. So, you get the ability of getting various mages through the colleges of magic in every single territory you hold. But once you do get those mages, so let's say, we go with the Lore of Shadows mage with a great wizard over here for the Empire. Once you do get a mage of a particular school through the colleges of magic, you can then get access to various abilities, to various cataclysm spells that were apparently designed originally for Realms of Chaos. And then no one really cared about it because the whole hunt for demon souls was completely fucking meaningless. But anyway, you have these cataclysm spells. They're really powerful. They're army killer spells. If you use them correctly, if you position them correctly, they will win you battles that you should flat out lose. Or give you a significant advantage, even in battles that you're winning, all the same, reduce casualties. But they are limited in how many you have. And they do cost Winds of Magic. So they do have limitations, but when you do use them, well, let me just say, is freaking amazing. So what they've done with Gelt's campaign in Thrones of the King, they were able to finally make the idea of really powerful magic within a campaign that is appropriate for the Warhammer Fantasy universe, and then attach that to a campaign system that makes it very worthwhile to use. It's not a gimmick, it's a real campaign benefit over here. And that's just the Cataclysm spells. Then you consider things like getting stock stands for a target army with a Great Wizard, replenishing campaign movement range with a Celestial Wizard, etc., replenishing an army. Those are fantastic systems all together. So the way it works, the way it's implemented, hell, even the way it's balanced is really good for a campaign. Now, my personal issues with Gelt's campaign is that despite these wonderful systems, it kind of feels like a nothing campaign at the moment because it's very easy, very slow-paced, very safe. Too safe. Like, you have a campaign over here that should really be in some kind of Thunderdome. Like, if you could put Gelt in Nagorond or Illustria, please don't put him in Illustria. Illustria sucks. But literally, if you started him next to Vlad von Karstein, that would be a hell of a freaking campaign to actually engage in. Unfortunately, he starts right now in a very safe province with large distances between them, so you're never really at risk of losing anything substantial in this campaign. But this is a campaign where you really should have a lot more things on your plate to deal with because you're certainly very capable of doing so. It's also something that is completely broken because you do kind of want to abuse the mechanic of returning back to the Empire. I think that choice should be at the beginning of a campaign. Like, do you want Gelt at the beginning of a campaign to focus on Cafe, or do you want him to go back in the Empire? I think they did that better with the Stankia. But at the same time, the system, the idea, the systems, the implementation of the system is great. It's just the campaign itself. At the moment, that does leave something to be desired. Why do I say at the moment? Because, well, the area of the map over here where Gelt is dealing with might just very well be expanded soon enough. You got the Kala, potentially, who might start in Cafe. We never know. You have the Monkey King, you have the Fire Dragon. Things are going to get a lot more hectic, a lot more quickly than one might assume in this area of the campaign map. And I think that is really going to benefit Gelt's campaign. For a moment, I do think Karl Franz is the better campaign to play in general, but I won't deny that Gelt's campaign systems are freaking amazing. And certainly much better than what Elspeth ended up getting, which is a carbon copy of Ikekla's Lab. Yeah, between that and Gelt, I think I'd prefer Gelt, suffice to say. And finally, at number 1 is Malachi Macassin. Now, the Dwarf rework redefined what a campaign experience might be, because you not only have the short-term objectives of a campaign, be it your victory conditions or the Age of Reckoning that they introduced for the Dwarves, but on top of that, you have these long-term objectives through a campaign with the Legendary Grudges, and you also have Confederation with all the other Legendary Lords of the Dwarves, which makes for a far more dynamic and interesting campaign to play through. So that is really good. But then you have Malachi himself. He doesn't have Gotrek and Felix, and you're basically replaying Gotrek and Felix's adventures from the lore in this campaign. I also think it's a great system of unit upgrades, because you don't just have like a resource that you're spending to upgrade your units. If you look at Ikeklan, for instance, instead you have to earn those upgrades by doing various things with certain units. You do get a couple of these units for free so that you can get started, but you do have to use these units, use them well, and get those kind of upgrades. It makes for a hell of a campaign system that is genuinely far more interesting to play than the vast majority of other campaigns or all other campaigns in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. There's a reason why Malachi has one of the most played campaigns in the entire game, and that's for a DLC campaign. Keep in mind that aspect. Like, it makes sense that Call of France is a very well-played campaign given the popularity of the Empire among the fanbase, but the fact that the DLC campaign for Forensic K is one of the most played campaigns in the game as well is saying quite a lot about how Creative Assembly nailed it with respect to this one. So a really fun, dynamic, interesting, unique campaign that in itself sets the standard of what the campaign should be in Total War. So very unique, very interesting, very fun. And that's all I had to say. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.